Disclaimer before we begin. This is being recorded live, so expect some mistakes. Chapter 12. Chloe was finishing her breakfast when Itch came down the stairs. He hadn't slept well, his mind full of the events of last night. They could both hear their mother in the shower. For the moment it was safe to talk. Itch and Jack had briefed Chloe as soon as they got back. You can't leave it in the shed, Itch. Last night I googled radioactivity. It's scary stuff. You really need to take a look. The whole garden might be poisoned by now. Itch sat down at the table. I know that. Like I said, we never intended to take it back. We just saw our chance. That's all. And it is in a lead glove. That should protect us for a bit. He got up to make some toast. You measure radioactive decay in curies or becquerels, I think. It sent the Geiger counter crazy, but how far the radiation spreads, I'm not sure. I don't have the kit for that. But you're right about not leaving it in the shed. I'll move it before school. Is there a safe way to carry it? Asked Chloe. Sure, all you need is a lead-lined box like the one we left behind. So, Chloe faltered. Moving it is pretty dangerous too, then? Yes, I reckon so. She stood watching her brother make his toast. You need to tell Mr. Watkins. He could get a box, couldn't he? Yeah, I've been wondering about that. He could get one and then take it to his friends at the mining school. It's just the Cakes had to keep quiet and tell no one. Yeah, well, maybe Cake's wrong on this. Let's not fill the garden with, whatever you said. Becquerels. Right, them. They sound nasty. The noise of the shower stopped and Itch spoke more quietly. I'll get it on our way out. You haven't got an empty tin I could use, have you? Got an old Hannah Montana pencil tin if you can face it. Itch grimaced. She was almost as toxic as a rock. She might even cancel out all the dangerous becquerels. Ha ha. But that'll do, thanks. Where are you going to put it? Beach hut, I think. It'll just be for a few hours if Watkins can help us. Is that any safer than the shed? No one lives close to the hut, so yes, probably. I'll go and get Hannah Montana. Chloe went up to her room and Itch finished his breakfast. Drew Loft came into the kitchen wearing jeans and an old t-shirt, a towel around her hair. Morning, Itch. How's things? Itch wondered for a moment exactly how things were. He could say, well, I broke into my chemistry teacher's house last night and stole my radioactive rock back, and it's currently wrapped in a glove and a towel, also both stolen, in our shed. But he just said, fine, and added, no work today? Got a paper to prepare, 20,000 words, so I might as well work from home today. I can actually cook for you and Chloe tonight. How about that for a novelty? She filled the kettle and found a tea bag. Any requests? I'm going to walk into town for a bit. Itch stumped for a moment. What did his mother cook best? One of your pies would be nice. You haven't made those for a while. No, you're right. Not for years, I'd reckon. Dad always liked them, didn't he? Okay, I'll see what the butcher's got. She looked at the clock. You and Chloe should get off. While Chloe waited outside the front door, Itch headed for the shed with his sister's pencil tin. He realized he was holding his breath and squinting as though that might reduce his exposure to the radiation which he pictured pouring all over the garden. He retrieved the tile and gloved rock from the empty paint pot he had put them in last night. Using a towel, he tried to drop the whole lot into the pencil tin, but the towel was far too bulky. Carefully, as if it might explode, he unwrapped the glove at the edge of the towel, scooped it up and dropped it into the tin. He had no idea if that made it safer, but it seemed logical. He put on the lid and stowed it in his rucksack. He left the shed door open in case that helped get rid of the radiation, like it was some kind of bad smell. He made Chloe walk 20 paces ahead of him, which she thought looked ridiculous, so she didn't complain. She stood guard while Itch opened the beach hut and hid the tin in a small saucepan they used for heating soup. He locked up and they walked past the other huts and onto the cliffs. Chloe glanced at her brother. He looked pale and tired. His hair was a mess, and his school shirt looked as though it was yesterday's. You okay? She asked. Yeah, not bad, considering. After a few paces he completed his own sentence. Considering I spent half the night wondering what Flaherty might do next. I have him periods 3 and 4. They were looping around the golf course now, quickening their pace. The beach hut detour had cost them a few minutes. There is no way he can connect you to the stone disappearing, though, is there? Said Chloe. Unless he has CCTV in his house, said Itch. And we didn't see any cameras. I wonder if he's radioactive. Thanks, Chloe. Let's hope not. Itch was sure Mr. Watkins was the man to speak to. In fact, he was the only man to speak to. He knew his stones and he knew Flaherty. In his many waking hours that night, Itch had decided that despite Cake's warning to tell no one, he had to get help, and his former teacher was the only candidate. He and Chloe arrived just as the 8:45 registration bell was ringing and they ran to their respective classrooms. Maybe he could get a word with Watkins before first period. He pushed open the classroom door and found Mr. Littlewood taking the register. Itch shuffled round to his desk and said quietly to Jack, "I put it in the beach hut. Where's Watkins?" "Invigilating an exam. Free at lunchtime, I guess. You going to tell him?" Itch nodded. He handed Jack her history books. "Thanks. I didn't copy too much, honestly." Jack smiled. "Let's hope not. Shall I test you on German foreign policy just to see how much went in?" Itch laughed. "Yes, that would go well." Suddenly, James Potts shoved his head over Jack's shoulder. "Some book sloughing going on in weird cousin land, is there? I wonder if Mr. Littlewood would like to know about that." "Go away, creep," said Jack. "Let me think now. Your last essay was a C minus, wasn't it? Maybe you should try borrowing someone's work, if you can find anyone stupid enough to lend you anything." She got a sharp elbow in the ribs for that, but at least Potts went back to his bench and didn't say anything to Littlewood. During break that morning, word spread of an interesting first 2 periods in Flargy's chemistry lab. The year 8s were reporting that he hadn't turned up and that a whole period had passed before anyone came to sit with them. In the end, Miss Glenacre had arrived to help out, and then Dr. Dart. Apparently they didn't know where he was either. As Itch and Jack had chemistry next, I decided to turn up early to see what happened. Heading for the lab, I realised that the rest of the class had had the same idea. For the first time anyone could remember, every pupil was at their bench before the bell went. As I waited for Flargy, Sam Jennings volunteered to be a lookout and stood by the door, poking her head out every 10 seconds. After 5 minutes, she flew back in, calling, "Brigadier," and had just reached her seat when their English teacher marched in. He put a pile of marking on the desk and was greeted by a forest of raised hands and a chorus of, "Sir, where's Dr. Flargy? Is he ill? What's happened to him, sir?" Gordon Carter raised both hands for silence. "The answer to all your questions is, I have no idea. Sorry, but there it is. Now, I have a pile of marking to do, and intend to get on with it. I'm sure you have a chemistry textbook or something that you can look at." General groans greeted that. "Or I could always set you a lovely essay. We could recap some of our Merchant of Venice if you prefer." Everyone opened their chemistry books at once, and the Brigadier smiled appreciatively. Itch leaned towards Jack. "This doesn't feel good, does it?" Jack shook her head without looking up. As period 3 ended and period 4 began, the Brigadier was replaced by Craig Harris, one of the games teachers. He was in his usual Scotland rugby top and tracksuit bottoms and put a cup of coffee and 2 apples on the desk in front of him. "I'm giving up my break for you guys," he announced. "And I know even less about chemistry than Mr. Carter, so whatever it was you were doing for him, please feel free to continue doing it for me." Itch started writing a bit more in his German foreign policy homework. What he had done after their raid of the previous night was pretty sparse. They had history that afternoon, so this was a heaven-sent opportunity to add a paragraph or 2, but he worked slowly, as he always did in history, and still had a few paragraphs to write when the bell went for the end of the period. Everyone got up to leave, but Itch told Jack he was just finishing off and would catch up with her at lunch. Soon he was the only one left in the lab. Head down and writing as fast as he could, he was just finishing his last paragraph when he heard the lab door shut. He didn't look up immediately. Then a voice said, "Ah, Loft, just who I was hoping to see." And Itch felt the blood drain from his face. He looked up and saw Nathaniel Flargy standing at the front of the lab as if he was about to give a lesson. At first glance, the teacher appeared the same as ever with his expensive clothes and jewellery all in place. But his clothes looked crumpled, and his hair shot out at all angles as though he had, until recently, been wearing a hat. His face was flushed, his lips tightly together, almost invisible. He stared at Itch. "Hello, sir." Itch's voice sounded tight. He swallowed. "You missed your lesson. Are you okay?" "Come here." "Pardon?" "You heard. Come here." Itch got up slowly and walked to the front of the lab. "Where is it?" Where's what, sir?" Flargy put his face right in front of Itch's. "Let's get to the point. You came to my house last night and stole the rock. I want it back." Then, very quietly, "And I want it now." Itch swallowed again and then cleared his throat. You sent it to Switzerland, sir. You told..." Before he had finished his sentence, Itch felt a large hand around his throat. Flargy gave a roar of rage, and Itch was propelled, neck first, back towards the door. Flargy pinned him in the corner, out of sight of any passing students or teachers. Itch's eyes were watering as he stared wide-eyed at his teacher. "Crying now, Loft? Did you think I wouldn't know it was you?" The hand around his neck tightened and started to lift him off the ground. He tried to cough, but the grip was too tight and bright lights started to appear in his eyes. Suddenly 2 Year 10s came into the lab and Flargy dropped him. "Get out!" he shouted at them, and they jumped, then ran off. Itch had crumpled and was now sitting slumped in the corner, shaking. Flargy knelt down beside him. From his pocket he pulled out a towel. Itch realized that it was the one from Flargy's house that he had wrapped the rock in. He had left it in the shed when he transferred the rock that morning. Flargy saw Itch's expression change. Yes, I find this in your shed. Looks like mine, doesn't it? So I'll ask you again. He reached out and grabbed Itch by the shirt this time. He looked desperate, almost mad. Where is the rock, Loft? He lifted him up till Itch's head was higher than his own. I need it! He banged Itch's head against the wall. I need it now! He banged his head again. Itch cried out this time, and Flargy's other hand swiftly covered his victim's mouth. No, you're not calling out. The only thing you'll say is, where you put the damn stone? Now the door burst open a second time when Dr. Dart, John Watkins, and Chris Hopkins, the physics teacher, all ran in. Dr. Dart screamed, Dr. Flowerdew! And Watkins grabbed Itch while Dart and Hopkins pulled Flargy's hands away from him. More students arrived. 2 Year 7 girls who started screaming. Then Jim Littlewood and Craig Harris came tearing in. Seeing Dr. Dart and Chris Hopkins struggling with a manic Flargy, they jumped on the head of science and pinned him against his own desk. Dr. Dart ordered the students to leave immediately, and go to the staff room to get help. They left quickly, but another crowd was already gathering outside the lab, staring through the glass. Some started cheering as they watched Mr. Watkins standing in front of Itch, arms outstretched to form a barrier between Itch and Flargy. As soon as he thought the head of science was subdued, he turned to find his pupils sprawled on the floor. He knelt down and tried to help him up, but misjudged his actions as Itch cried out as his head banged against the wall again. Careful with the boy, John, called Dr. Dart. They were aghast from the watching students. Every inch of window space was now taken by wide-eyed CA students, many of them with their phones pressed to the glass. A dozen blinking red lights shone into the classroom. Meanwhile, Watkins removed his jacket and rolled it up the cushion Itch's head. Itch cried out in pain, and his teacher realized that there was a huge bruise swelling and distorting the back of his head. When you're finished, Jim, come and check here, please, he said to the first aider. But at the moment, all the teachers were busy restraining Flargy. Hopkins and Harris held his legs while Littlewood pinioned his arms, but they were losing the struggle. Flargy was slowly but surely wresting his arms and legs free, yelling and hurling abuse at Itch as he threw his head from side to side. A chorus of "Fight! Fight!" started in the corridor. Someone shouted, "Detention for Flargy!" as the head of science turned to the head. "He stole my rock! He broke into my house! It's gone and it's his fault! Search him! It's here! I know he's got it!" Dr. Dart, red-faced with fury, shouted back, "I'll do no such thing! Consider yourself suspended immediately! You stay here till the police come!" "In which case," yelled Flargy, "I'll do it!" And he wrenched his arms free, turned and punched Mr. Littlewood on the side of the head. The history teacher fell back, and now Mr. Hopkins let go, leaving only the games teacher still with his arms around Flargy's legs. Mr. Harris shoved hard, just as he taught his rugby teams to, and Flargy toppled over. As he fell, he grabbed a glass flask from his desk and smashed it on Mr. Harris's head, the shards flying everywhere. To screams and gasps from the watching pupils, blood started to pour through the games master's hair. He let go of Flargy. Now free of restraints, the chemistry teacher stood and turned to Itch, who was still propped up against the wall, his head cushioned on Mr. Watkins's jacket. Some of the pupils stepped back from the windows. A Year 10 girl shouted, "Leave him alone, bully!" "Get out of the way, Watkins, or make him turn out his pockets." Flargy moved towards them, the neck of the broken flask still in his hand. John Watkins was trembling slightly, but he didn't flinch and his voice was steady. "We knew you were a terrible teacher, Nathaniel, but we never knew you were mad. You do realize you'll go to prison for this, don't you? I have a career you're hoping for gone." There was applause from the corridor, while Flargy advanced on Watkins more like a street fighter than a chemistry teacher. "Leave them alone, for pity's sake!" cried Dr. Dart. Flargy ignored her. "Empty your pockets, Loft." Watched by everyone, Itch took out the contents of his 2 trouser and 3 jacket pockets. Harris and Hopkins had no idea what was happening or what they were looking for, but stared at the items anyway. A few coins, 3 biros, and some tissues. No rock. The large crowd of pupils running from the corridor turned as they heard, watching from the corridor turned as they heard running footsteps. 6 members of staff ran into the lab, led by Gordon Carter, the brigadier. They all stood staring at the extraordinary scene in front of them, but before anyone could react, Flargy put his head down and charged. He crashed into the maths teacher, Sunil Mansour, and Hilary Briggs from ICT, and pushed his way out of the door. The students scattered as he ran down the corridor. Mr. Harris, his head bleeding, made to follow him, but Dr. Dart said, "No, Craig, let him go. Just call the police. He's dangerous. Let him leave the school premises. I can arrest him later." And I suppose we need an ambulance as well. Oh, my word. And she slumped down in Florage's chair.